Welcome, friend. Settle in close to the fire. Tonight I have a story for you about a woman who thought her life was over and the cowboy who proved her wrong. Pour yourself something warm and let me tell you about the blizzard that changed everything. Oklahoma Territory, 1888. The letter arrived on a Tuesday, changing everything Abigail Sterling thought she knew about her life. Her uncle was dead. The uncle she barely remembered. The one who'd left Boston 30 years ago and never returned. And he'd left her his ranch. All of it. 200 acres in Oklahoma Territory. A place she'd never seen, in a world she didn't understand. At 26, Abigail had resigned herself to spinsterhood. Her father's gambling debts had destroyed any marriage prospects years ago. She worked as a seamstress in a cramped Boston apartment, surviving but not living. The ranch was a miracle. A chance to start over, a chance to build something of her own. She sold everything she owned, bought a train ticket west, and left Boston without looking back. The train carried her across a country she'd only read about in books. Endless prairie replaced cobblestone streets. Big sky swallowed the horizon. And with each mile, Abigail felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. The station master in Oklahoma City pointed her toward a freight wagon heading near her uncle's property. The driver, a grizzled old man named Hank, agreed to take her for $2. Fall had turned cold early that year. The prairie grass was brown and brittle. Dark clouds gathered on the horizon as they traveled. But Hank said it was just rain coming. He was wrong. The blizzard hit 2 hours from her destination. One moment the sky was gray and sullen. The next, the world disappeared in white. Hank tried to keep going, but within minutes he couldn't see the horses. The wagon lurched to a stop. "Can't go on, miss. We'll have to wait it out." But there was nowhere to wait. Just open prairie and a wagon with no cover. The temperature plummeted. Wind screamed across the grassland, driving snow horizontal. Abigail pulled her shawl tight and tried not to panic. She'd survived Boston winters. This was just weather. She'd be fine. An hour later, she could no longer feel her feet. Her hands were blue. Hank had stopped talking, just hunched on the wagon seat, with ice forming in his beard. The horses stamped and whinnied, miserable in the storm. And Abigail realized with cold clarity that she was going to die out here. She'd come all this way for nothing. 2 hours into the storm, Hank's head drooped forward. He didn't respond when she called his name. Panic finally broke through the cold. Abigail climbed down from the wagon on legs that barely worked. She had to find shelter. Had to keep moving, or she'd freeze like Hank. She stumbled into the white wall of snow, immediately losing sight of the wagon. The wind knocked her sideways. She fell, struggled up, fell again. Her dress was soaked through. Ice formed in her hair. She couldn't feel anything anymore, which she dimly recognized as bad. Very bad. She crawled for a while when walking became impossible. Then, crawling became impossible too. Abigail Sterling lay in the snow and thought about her uncle's ranch. She'd never see it. Never have that fresh start. It seemed unfair, somehow, to die within miles of the only good thing that had ever happened to her. Her eyes drifted closed. The cold didn't hurt anymore. That was nice. She didn't hear the horse, didn't see the man dismount and drop to his knees beside her. She only felt strong arms lift her, heard a deep voice curse viciously, and then nothing. Warmth came back slowly, painfully, fire burning through frozen limbs. Abigail surfaced to consciousness in stages. First awareness of heat, then of pain, then of voices. She's waking up. About time. Thought we'd lost her. She forced her eyes open. A rough wooden ceiling, firelight dancing on log walls, and two faces staring down at her. The first belonged to an older woman with kind eyes and gray-streaked hair. The second was a man, younger, maybe early 30s, dark hair, blue eyes that looked tired and worried. A short beard showed signs of frostbite on his cheeks. "Welcome back," the woman said gently. "I'm Mary Chambers. This is my son Elijah. He found you in the storm." Abigail tried to speak. Her throat felt raw. "The driver. Hank." The two exchanged glances. Mary shook her head. "I'm sorry. He was already gone when Elijah found the wagon. But you're alive. That's what matters now." Alive. Abigail closed her eyes against sudden tears. Poor Hank. He died trying to get her to her uncle's ranch. "Where am I?" "Our ranch," Elijah said. His voice was rough, deep. "About 5 miles from the Sterling place. That's where you were heading?" "Yes. I'm Abigail Sterling, William Sterling's niece. I inherited his ranch." Something flickered in Elijah's eyes. Surprise? Concern? It was gone before she could identify it. "You inherited the Sterling ranch," he repeated slowly. "From Boston? I'm guessing by the accent?" "Yes. I didn't know my uncle well. But he left me his property. Everything he had." Mary squeezed her hand. "Well, that's something good at least. Once this storm passes, we'll get you there safe. But for now, you need to rest and get warm. You came close to dying out there." Abigail knew that. Could still feel the cold in her bones, the memory of giving up. "Thank you," she whispered, "for saving me." Elijah shrugged uncomfortably. Anyone would have done the same. But they hadn't. He had. This stranger had ridden out into a killing storm and found her when she'd lost hope. She owed him her life. Over the next 2 days, as the blizzard raged outside, Abigail learned about the Chambers family. Mary was a widow. Her husband had died 5 years ago when a horse kicked him in the chest. Elijah had been a cavalry officer during the war, stationed at Fort Sill. After the war, he'd come home to help his mother run the ranch. They were good people, kind. The ranch was modest, but well kept. Elijah worked hard, rose before dawn, came in after dark. Mary cooked and kept house and treated Abigail like a welcomed guest rather than an inconvenience. And Abigail tried not to notice how her heart jumped when Elijah walked into a room. Tried not to watch him too closely. Tried not to think about how his arms had felt carrying her, how safe she'd felt even while half frozen. She was being foolish. He'd saved her life. That was all. He was just a good man, doing what was right. But when he smiled at something his mother said, Abigail felt warmth that had nothing to do with the fire. On the 3rd day, the storm broke. Sunlight returned, blinding on fresh snow, and Mary suggested Elijah take Abigail to see her uncle's ranch. "You'll want to see what you've inherited," Mary said. Elijah knows the property well. He can show you around. They rode out mid-morning. Elijah on his black horse, Abigail on a gentle mare Mary insisted she borrow. The world was transformed. Snow covered everything, sparkling in bright sun. It was beautiful and deadly and completely foreign to a Boston seamstress. Abigail had never ridden a horse before arriving in Oklahoma. She clutched the reins awkwardly and tried to stay balanced. Elijah noticed, slowing his pace to match hers. "You're doing fine," he said. "Just relax. Let her do the work." Easy for him to say. He sat his horse like he was born in the saddle. Confident. Natural. Everything Abigail wasn't. "I'm trying not to fall off," she admitted. "I've never ridden before." "Never?" He sounded surprised. "Not even in Boston?" "My family didn't have horses. We couldn't afford them. I walked or took the trolley." He absorbed this. "Well, you're a quick learner. Most people fall off at least once their first time. The day's not over yet." His laugh surprised her. It was a good sound. Warm. Real. Fair point. They rode in comfortable silence for a while. Abigail tried to relax, like he'd said. The mare seemed patient with her inexperience. And gradually, she found a rhythm. Not graceful, but functional. "How far is it?" she asked. "About 4 miles. Should be there within the hour." He paused. "Did you know your uncle well?" "No. He left Boston before I was born. My father barely talked about him. I think they had a falling out." "William Sterling was a good man," Elijah said quietly. "Kept to himself mostly. Worked his land hard. Fair to his neighbors. I'm sorry you didn't get to know him." "Me too. It seems strange to inherit from someone I never met. Like a gift from a ghost. Maybe he wanted you to have a better life than he did. A fresh start out here." Abigail glanced at him. His profile was strong. Hard jaw. Straight nose. Eyes that looked older than his years. Weathered by sun and work and things she could only guess at. "Is that why you stayed?" she asked. "After the war? For a fresh start?" His expression tightened. "Something like that." She'd pushed too hard. "I'm sorry. That was too personal." "No. It's all right." He was quiet for a moment. "The war changed things. Changed me. Coming home was the only thing that made sense. My mother needed help, and I needed a reason to keep going. The ranch gave me that." There was pain in his voice. Deep scars she recognized, because she carried her own. Maybe that's why she felt drawn to him. Broken recognized broken. "I understand," she said softly. "After my father died and the debts came due, I thought my life was over. Just survival. Day after day, waiting for nothing. The letter about the ranch was the first hope I'd felt in years." "Then I'm glad you got it," Elijah said. "Everyone deserves hope." They crested a low hill, and he pointed. "There. That's the Sterling Ranch." Abigail's breath caught. A small house stood in a shallow valley, smoke rising from its chimney. Barn and outbuildings scattered nearby. Fences marked pastures. And beyond it all, prairies stretched forever under endless sky. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "It's yours," Elijah said. "All of it. 200 acres. Good water. Decent grazing. Your uncle built something solid here." They rode down to the house. Up close, Abigail could see it needed work. The porch sagged. Shutters hung crooked. But it was real. Hers. A place to build a life. Elijah dismounted and helped her down. His hands were steady on her waist, lifting her easily. For a moment they stood close, his blue eyes meeting her green ones. Then he stepped back, clearing his throat. "Let's look inside." The house was simple. 2 rooms. Kitchen and living area in front, bedroom in back. A loft above for storage. Everything dusty from months of disuse, but solid. Good furniture. A stove. Shelves with a few books. Her uncle's life, waiting for someone to continue it. Abigail walked through slowly, touching things. A chair. The table. The stove that would heat and cook. This was hers. Really hers. No landlord to pay. No debts. Just a home waiting for her to fill it with life. "What do you think?" Elijah asked from the doorway. "I think it's perfect," she said. Tears pricked her eyes. "I think I can't believe this is real." "It's real." He smiled, and it transformed his face. Made him look younger. Happier. "Welcome home, Abigail." Home. The word settled into her chest like warmth. Yes. This could be home. This could be everything she'd dreamed of. They spent the morning going through the house and outbuildings. Elijah showed her the barn, the chicken coop, the root cellar. Explained what repairs were needed. Pointed out the good and the bad. "Your uncle kept a few cattle," he said. "Maybe 20 head. They're probably scattered from the storm, but they'll come back when the snow melts and grass shows. You'll need to round them up. Check brands. Make sure you still have them all." "I don't know how to do any of that," Abigail admitted. "I'm a seamstress. I know fabric and thread, not cattle and branding." "You'll learn. Everyone out here learns fast or doesn't last long." He studied her. "Are you sure about this? It's hard work. Lonely sometimes. Dangerous too." "I'm sure," she said firmly. "I didn't come all this way to give up at the first challenge. I can learn. I will learn." "Then I'll help you," Elijah said. "Teach you what you need to know. That's what neighbors do out here." "Why?" The question escaped before she could stop it. "Why help me? You don't owe me anything." He looked at her steadily. "Because your uncle was a friend. Because you're new out here and need help. Because it's the right thing to do." A pause. "And because I want to." Her heart did that foolish jumping thing again. She ignored it. "Thank you. I'll repay you somehow." "No need. Just promise you'll ask when you need help, instead of trying to do everything alone. Pride gets people killed out here." "I promise." They rode back to the Chambers Ranch as afternoon shadows lengthened. Abigail's mind spun with everything she needed to do. Repairs. Learning to ranch. Finding her cattle. It was overwhelming. Terrifying. And exciting. For the first time in years, she had purpose. Something to build. A future that was hers to shape. Mary insisted Abigail stay another few days. "Until you get supplies and make the house livable," she said firmly. "No sense freezing alone when there's room here." Abigail accepted gratefully. The truth was, she wasn't ready to be alone yet. Wasn't ready to leave the warmth and safety of the Chambers home. wasn't ready to stop seeing Elijah across the dinner table every evening. But on the fourth day, as she helped Mary with mending, a rider appeared. A man in his late 40s with silver-streaked hair and expensive clothes. He dismounted and knocked on the door with authority. Elijah answered. His expression hardened when he saw the visitor. "Kincaid," he said flatly. "What do you want?" "Just being neighborly, Chambers. Heard there's a new owner at the Sterling place. Thought I'd pay my respects." The man's smile didn't reach his eyes. Abigail felt cold despite the fire. "Abigail Sterling," the man said smoothly. "I'm Elias Kincaid. I own the land east of your uncle's place. I was sorry to hear about William's passing. He was a good neighbor." Liar, Abigail thought. This man's eyes were cold, calculating. He didn't care about her uncle. "Thank you," she said carefully. "I appreciate your condolences. I heard you inherited the property. All 200 acres. Kincaid's smile widened. "That's a lot of land for a woman alone, especially one from back east with no ranching experience." "I'll manage." Of course. But if you ever decide it's too much, I'd be happy to make you an offer. Fair price, cash in hand. You could go back to Boston, a wealthy woman. I'm not selling. Not now, perhaps, but winter's just starting. It gets hard out here. Lonely, dangerous for a woman alone. My offer stands. Anytime you want to discuss it, just come find me." He tipped his hat and rode off. Abigail watched him go with a sick feeling in her stomach. "Don't trust him," Elijah said quietly. "Kincaid's been trying to buy your uncle's land for years. William always refused. Now he thinks you'll be easier to persuade." "He's wrong." "Good. Because Kincaid doesn't take no for an answer. He'll try again. Probably make things difficult for you." "Let him try," Abigail said with more confidence than she felt. "I didn't survive freezing to death just to give up my ranch to a snake in a suit." Elijah grinned. "You're tougher than you look." "I have to be. Women always do." That evening, Elijah taught her to shoot. They set up bottles on fence posts behind the barn. He showed her how to hold his spare rifle, how to aim, how to breathe and squeeze the trigger gently. The first shot knocked her backward. The noise was deafening. The bottle remained intact. "Try again," Elijah said patiently. "You flinched. Keep both eyes open, and don't anticipate the recoil." She tried again, and again, and again. By the 10th attempt, she hit a bottle. It exploded in satisfying fragments. "I did it," she gasped. "I actually hit it." "You're a natural," Elijah said. He stood behind her, close enough that she could feel his warmth. "A few more practice sessions, and you'll be able to protect yourself if you need to." "From Kincaid?" "From anyone who threatens you." She turned to look at him. He was so close. His eyes held hers, and something passed between them. Something warm and electric that made her breath catch. "Elijah," she started. "I know," he said quietly. "I feel it too. But you just got here. You're building a new life. You don't need complications." "What if I want complications?" His jaw tightened. "Abigail, I'm not a good man. I did things in the war. Killed people. I have nightmares. Sometimes I wake up not knowing where I am. You deserve better than someone broken." "We're all broken," she said softly. The war broke you. My father's death and debts broke me. Maybe broken people fit together better than whole ones. He touched her face, just his fingertips against her cheek. You're not broken. You're surviving. That's different. So are you. For a moment she thought he might kiss her. His eyes dropped to her lips. His hand cupped her cheek. But then, he stepped back, putting distance between them. We should head in. It's getting dark. Disappointment and relief mixed in her chest. He was right. This was too fast. Too soon. She barely knew him. But God. She wanted to know him. Wanted to understand the shadows in his eyes and the pain he carried. 2 days later, Elijah helped her move into the Sterling Ranch. They spent the morning cleaning, airing out rooms, getting the stove working. Mary sent food and supplies. Neighbors Abigail hadn't met yet stopped by with gifts. A jar of preserves. Fresh bread. Welcome to the territory. By evening, the house felt almost livable. Abigail stood on the porch and watched the sun set over her land. Her land. The words still felt impossible. You'll do fine, Elijah said from behind her. You're stronger than you think. I hope so. She turned to face him. Thank you. For everything. For saving my life. Teaching me. Helping me settle in. I don't know how I can ever repay you. Just be happy, he said. That's payment enough. He mounted his horse, tipped his hat, and rode toward home. Abigail watched until he disappeared over the hill. Then, she went inside her house, closed the door, and allowed herself to believe this might actually work. She had land, a home, a purpose, and maybe, just maybe, she had a cowboy who looked at her like she mattered. That night, alone in her uncle's bed, Abigail didn't feel afraid. She felt hopeful. And that was something she hadn't felt in a very long time. The first week passed in a blur of work. Abigail learned to care for chickens, milk the cow Elijah brought over, chop wood for the stove. Her hands blistered and bled. Her back ached. She fell into bed exhausted every night. But she was building something, learning, growing stronger. Elijah came by every day, sometimes to teach her something new, sometimes just to check on her. He never stayed long, always respectful. But Abigail found herself watching for him, her heart lifting when she heard his horse approach. They were becoming friends. She told him about Boston, about her father's gambling and death, about the years of poverty and shame. He told her about the war, about battles he'd fought and men he'd lost. They shared their scars and found comfort in being understood. On the 8th day, Abigail discovered the first problem. 3 of her cattle were missing. Stolen, she realized when she found tracks leading off her land toward Kincaid's property. She rode to Elijah's ranch immediately. He was in the barn, repairing tack. When she told him about the missing cattle, his expression hardened. "Kincaid," he said flatly. "Testing you. Seeing if you'll fight back or give up." "I'm fighting back," Abigail said. "Those are my cattle. I want them back." "We'll get them back," Elijah promised. "But we need to be smart about it. Kincaid has men working for him. Rough types. We can't just ride over there and demand he return your property. Then what do? We prove he stole them, catch him red-handed, Then we go to the marshal. They made a plan. Elijah would watch Kincaid's land. When more cattle disappeared, they'd follow the trail and catch the thieves in the act. It was dangerous, but necessary. That night, Elijah stayed at Abigail's ranch. He insisted on sleeping in the barn, saying it was improper for them to be alone in the house together. She argued, but eventually agreed. Reputation mattered in small communities, even on the frontier. But she brought him dinner. They ate together on her porch, watching stars emerge. "I never saw stars like this in Boston," Abigail said. "The city lights drown them out. Out here they're so close you feel like you could reach up and touch them," Elijah said. "Some nights during the war, when everything was bad, I'd look up at stars and remember they were the same ones shining over home. It helped." "Were you afraid? During the war?" "Every day. Anyone who says they weren't is lying. But you do what you have to. Protect the men beside you. Follow orders. Try to survive until tomorrow." "And after? When you came home?" He was quiet for a long moment. "After was harder, in some ways. During the war, everything was clear. Enemies, allies, objectives. After, nothing made sense. I'd wake up reaching for my rifle, hear a door slam, and hit the ground expecting gunfire. My mother would find me sitting on the porch at 3 a.m. because I couldn't sleep. Does it get better? It gets manageable. I still have bad nights. But working the ranch helps. Routine, purpose, and knowing I'm building something instead of destroying it." Abigail reached over and took his hand. He stiffened, then relaxed. His fingers curled around hers. "You're not broken," she said firmly. "You're healing. There's a difference." "Maybe." His thumb stroked across her knuckles. "Being around you helps. You see me as I am now, not who I was during the war. That's rare. I see a good man who saved my life and is helping me build a future. That's who you are." He looked at her. Really looked, and she saw vulnerability in his eyes. "I want to kiss you," he said quietly. "But I'm afraid if I start, I won't want to stop." Her heart raced. "Maybe that's okay." "It's not. You're alone out here, dependent on me for help. I won't take advantage of that. When I kiss you, it needs to be because you want me, not because you need me. What if it's both?" His jaw clenched. "Abigail." "I understand," she said, even though part of her wanted to argue. He was right. This was too new, too complicated. But God, she wanted him. Wanted to close the distance between them and lose herself in the warmth she saw in his eyes. "I should check the barn," Elijah said, standing. But he didn't let go of her hand immediately, just held it, his thumb still moving gently across her skin. Then he released her and walked away. Abigail sat alone on the porch long after he'd gone, her hand tingling where he'd touched her, her heart full of want and hope and frustration. 3 nights later, it happened. Elijah spotted movement near Abigail's fence line. Men cutting the wire, driving cattle toward Kincaid's land. He woke Abigail, and together they followed at a distance. 5 men. 2 herding cattle, 3 keeping watch. Abigail recognized one as a hired hand she'd seen at Kincaid's ranch. "That's proof," she whispered. "Not enough. We need to catch them on Kincaid's land with your cattle," Then it's undeniable. They followed carefully. The thieves were confident, careless. They drove the cattle straight to Kincaid's barn and penned them with his herd. "Now we go to the marshal," Elijah said. But as they turned to leave, a voice stopped them. "Well, well. Chambers and the Sterling woman. Out for a midnight ride?" Elias Kincaid stepped from the shadows, a rifle pointed at them. Behind him, his men spread out, cutting off escape. "We saw your men steal my cattle," Abigail said, forcing her voice steady despite her pounding heart. "The marshal will hear about this." "Will he?" Kincaid smiled. "The marshal is in Oklahoma City. 3 days' ride. By the time you get there and back, those cattle will be long gone, sold, dispersed. And it'll be your word against mine. Who do you think he'll believe? A respected rancher who's been here 20 years? Or a Boston seamstress who showed up a week ago?" "The brands don't lie," Elijah said. "Sterling's cattle are branded. Everyone will know they're hers. Brands can be changed. Mistakes made. Maybe I bought those cattle in good faith, not knowing they were stolen. Hard to prove otherwise." Kincaid's expression hardened. "Here's what's going to happen. Miss Sterling is going to sell me her land. Fair price. Tomorrow. And then she's going to leave Oklahoma Territory and never come back." "I'm not selling," Abigail said. "You will. Because if you don't, accidents happen. Fires start. People get hurt. It would be a shame if something happened to the Chambers Ranch, for example. All because you were too stubborn to take a good offer." Rage flooded through Abigail. "You're threatening them? Innocent people?" "I'm stating facts. This is hard country. People die. Ranches burn. Things happen." Kincaid gestured with his rifle. "Now, I'll give you until tomorrow evening to make the right decision. After that, well, I can't guarantee anyone's safety." "You won't get away with this," Elijah said, his voice deadly calm. "I already have. Your uncle thought he could stand against me too, Miss Sterling. Look how that worked out for him." Abigail's blood went cold. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying William Sterling was a stubborn old fool who should have taken my offer when he had the chance. His horse spooked. Tragic accident. These things happen." "You killed him," Abigail breathed. "You murdered my uncle." Kincaid shrugged. "Can't prove it. Just like you can't prove I stole your cattle. Now get off my land before I have you arrested for trespassing." His men moved closer, hands on their weapons. Elijah took Abigail's arm. "We're leaving. But this isn't over." "Yes, it is," Kincaid called after them. "Tomorrow evening, Miss Sterling. Make the smart choice." They rode back in tense silence. Abigail's mind raced. Kincaid had killed her uncle, was stealing her cattle, threatening to hurt the Chambers family if she didn't surrender everything. And she had no proof. No way to fight him legally. "We'll figure something out," Elijah said when they reached her ranch. "There has to be a way." "He'll hurt your mother," Abigail said, her voice breaking. "He'll burn your ranch. I can't let that happen because of me. Don't even think about giving in to him. What choice do I have? I won't risk your family." Elijah gripped her shoulders. "Listen to me. Kincaid wins if you run. He's been doing this for years, threatening people, stealing land, making himself rich while good people lose everything. We have to stop him." "How?" "You heard him. We have no proof. The marshal is 3 days away. By the time we get help, it'll be too late. Then we don't wait for help. We handle this ourselves. You mean fight him? His men will kill us. Not if we're smart. Elijah's eyes were hard. I learned a few things in the war about strategy and tactics. Kincaid thinks he's won. That makes him overconfident. We can use that. It's too dangerous. Everything out here is dangerous. But I'm not letting him steal from you. Not letting him threaten my family. Not letting him win. He cupped her face gently. Trust me, Abigail. We can do this together. She wanted to trust him. Wanted to believe they could stand against Kincaid's threats and guns. But fear clawed at her chest. What if something happens to you? She whispered. What if you get hurt because of me? I won't. I survived 4 years of war. I can handle one greedy rancher and his hired thugs. Elijah, I'm not losing you, he said fiercely. You just got here. You're supposed to build a life, be happy. I won't let Kincaid take that away. The emotion in his voice made her heart ache. Why does this matter so much to you? It's just land. It's not just land. It's your future, your hope. He hesitated, then continued. And because somewhere along the way, you became important to me. More important than is probably wise. I feel the same way, she admitted. About you. I've been trying not to, because it's too soon and too complicated. But I can't help it. Abigail. Her name was a prayer on his lips. Then he was kissing her, his mouth claiming hers with desperate need. She wrapped her arms around his neck and kissed him back, pouring all her fear and hope and feeling into it. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. Elijah pressed his forehead to hers. After this is over, he said roughly. After Kincaid is dealt with and you're safe. Can we talk about this? About us? Yes, she whispered. I'd like that. Good. Then let's make sure we both survive to have that conversation. They spent the rest of the night planning. Elijah knew Kincaid's property well, knew where his men slept, where he kept his horses, where he stored grain and supplies. And he knew that Kincaid's greatest weakness was arrogance. He thinks you're helpless, Elijah said. A scared woman who'll run at the first real threat. So we'll let him keep thinking that. Tomorrow evening, you'll go to his ranch. Tell him you'll sign the papers. And then, we spring the trap. The plan was risky, dangerous, probably foolish, but it was all they had. Morning came too soon. Abigail tried to act normal, doing chores, feeding animals. But inside, she was terrified. What if this went wrong? What if Elijah got hurt? What if Kincaid's men were too much for them? Mary arrived mid-morning with fresh bread and news that the marshal was expected back in Oklahoma City by week's end. Maybe you could wait, she suggested when Elijah explained the situation. Let the law handle it. Kincaid won't wait, Elijah said. He wants this resolved now, before Abigail can get help. Then I'm coming with you, Mary said firmly. You'll need an extra pair of hands. Mother, no. It's too dangerous. I've lived through drought, disease, and losing your father. I'm tougher than I look, and you're my son. I'm not letting you face this alone. Elijah argued, but Mary was immovable. Eventually he surrendered. Fine, but you do exactly what I say. Don't I always? Mary's smile was wry. Two neighbors Elijah trusted also agreed to help. Tom Fletcher, a young rancher from up north, and Miguel Santos, a vaquero who'd known William Sterling well and wanted justice for his murder. By late afternoon, everything was ready. Abigail changed into her best dress, the one she'd worn arriving from Boston. She looked respectable, defeated. Exactly what Kincaid expected to see. Elijah pulled her aside before she left. Remember, stay calm. Act scared, but resigned. Sign whatever papers he puts in front of you. We'll be in position before you arrive. What if something goes wrong? It won't. But if it does, run. Get out and don't look back. Your life is more important than the ranch. So is yours. He kissed her, quick and hard. I'll see you soon. This ends tonight. She rode alone to Kincaid's ranch, her heart hammering. Lantern light glowed in windows. Men moved between buildings. Everything looked normal. But she knew Elijah and the others were out there in the darkness, waiting. Kincaid greeted her at the door with false warmth. Miss Sterling, I'm pleased you've come to your senses. I don't have a choice, she said, letting her voice shake. I can't risk innocent people getting hurt because of my stubbornness. A wise decision. Come in. I have the papers ready. His study was opulent. Fine furniture. Expensive whiskey. Books he probably never read. The trappings of wealth stolen from others. Kincaid poured 2 glasses of whiskey. To new beginnings. Abigail accepted the glass, but didn't drink. She watched him settle behind his desk, pull out papers, dip his pen in ink. $500, he said. Very generous for 200 acres. It was robbery. The land was worth 10 times that. But she kept her expression defeated. Fine. Excellent. Sign here. He pushed the papers toward her. Abigail picked up the pen. Her hand shook, which wasn't entirely an act. She was terrified. What if Elijah's plan failed? What if this was all for nothing? She signed her name slowly. Abigail Sterling. The letters looked wrong on the page, like a betrayal. Perfect. Kincaid took the papers, blew on the ink. Now, about your departure. I think it's best if you leave territory by the end of the week. I understand. Good. My men will help you pack. Make sure you don't take anything that belongs with the property. A crash came from outside. Shouting. The sound of breaking wood. Kincaid's head snapped up. What the hell? More crashes. A horse whinnied in panic. Then smoke began drifting past the window. Fire! Someone yelled outside. The barn's on fire! Kincaid ran to the window and cursed viciously. His barn was blazing, flames already reaching toward the sky. His men were running everywhere, trying to free panicked horses. Get water! Move those animals! He ran for the door. Abigail stayed frozen, unsure what to do. This was the distraction Elijah had planned. But what now? Miguel appeared in the doorway, grinning. Time to go, señorita. She ran. Outside was chaos. Kincaid's men fought the fire. Horses stampeded. And in the confusion, no one noticed Abigail slip into the darkness. Elijah met her at the tree line, his face smudged with smoke. "You okay?" "Yes." "The papers don't matter. We're not done yet." Tom Fletcher appeared, leading 2 horses. "Got them. Kincaid's stallion and his foreman's mare, the ones they used to steal your cattle." "Perfect," Elijah said. Now for the final piece. While Kincaid's men fought the fire, Elijah and the others worked quickly. They drove Abigail's stolen cattle from Kincaid's pens back toward her ranch. They left clear tracks, evidence. And they took Kincaid's personal ledger, the one Miguel swore contained records of every illegal deal and stolen property for the past 5 years. By the time the fire was under control, they were gone. And Kincaid had much bigger problems than one woman's ranch. They waited at Abigail's ranch. Just after dawn, Kincaid arrived with 3 of his men. His face was black with rage. "You think you're clever?" he snarled. "Burning my barn? Stealing my horses?" "Your horses?" Abigail stepped onto her porch, Elijah beside her. "Funny, because they matched the description of horses used to steal my cattle 2 nights ago. I'm sure the marshal will be interested in that coincidence." "You have no proof." "We have your ledger," Elijah said calmly. He held up the leather-bound book. "Very detailed records, Kincaid. Every piece of land you've stolen. Every deal you've cheated. Every person you've threatened. It's all here in your own handwriting." Kincaid's face went pale. "That's my private property. You had no right. And you had no right to steal Miss Sterling's cattle. Or murder her uncle. Or threaten innocent families." Elijah's voice was steel. "The marshal gets back tomorrow. We'll be waiting for him with this ledger and testimony from a dozen witnesses. Your days of stealing are over. You'll regret this, Chambers. All of you. Maybe. But you'll regret it more from inside a jail cell." Kincaid and his men left. They had no choice. The evidence was damning, and half the territory had cause to testify against him. When they were gone, Abigail sagged against the porch post. "Is it really over?" "It's over," Elijah confirmed. "Kincaid's finished. He'll probably run before the marshal gets here. Men like him always do when they're caught. We did it. You did it. Stood up to him when you had every reason to run. We did it together," she corrected. She looked at the land, her land, bathed in morning sunlight. Smoke still rose from Kincaid's ranch in the distance. Justice served, however roughly. Mary rode up with Tom and Miguel. They were exhausted, smoke-stained, but smiling. "That was better than a Saturday night barn dance," Tom said cheerfully. "Did you see Kincaid's face?" "Justice," Miguel said with satisfaction. "For William Sterling and everyone else that bastard hurt." They celebrated with coffee and the last of Mary's bread. As the sun climbed higher, warming the cold morning, Abigail felt something settle in her chest. Safety. Security. Home. The others left eventually, Mary hugging Abigail tight and whispering, "Take care of my boy." Tom and Miguel tipping their hats and promising to spread word of Kincaid's downfall throughout the territory. And then, it was just Elijah and Abigail, standing on her porch as morning became afternoon. "You should rest," he said. "You've been up all night. So have you." "I'm used to it." She took his hand. His fingers were rough, calloused from work. Strong. Thank you. For everything. For saving my life in the blizzard. For teaching me. For standing with me against Kincaid. For not letting me give up. You never would have given up, he said. You're too stubborn. I was ready to sign those papers, to walk away from everything, to protect people you care about. That's different from giving up. His thumb stroked across her knuckles. You're the bravest person I know. I'm scared all the time. Courage isn't not being afraid. It's being afraid and doing it anyway. They stood close, not quite touching except for their joined hands. The air between them felt charged, heavy with unspoken feelings. You said after this was over, we could talk, Abigail said quietly. About us. I did say that. So let's talk. Elijah turned to face her fully. His blue eyes were serious, vulnerable. I'm not good at this, at feelings and words. War taught me to keep everything locked down tight. Try anyway. He took a breath. When I found you in that blizzard, half frozen and dying, something in me woke up. I'd been going through the motions since the war ended. Working. Existing. Not really living. But you changed that. Made me feel things I thought were dead. Her heart raced. What kind of things? Hope. Happiness. Want. His hand came up to cup her face. I want you, Abigail Sterling. Want to build a life with you. Wake up beside you. Face whatever comes together. But I'm damaged. I have nightmares. There are days I can't explain what's wrong, I just hurt. Days I'm not fit company for anyone, and you deserve better than that. I don't want better, she said fiercely. I want you. Nightmares and all. I'm damaged too, remember? We talked about this. Broken fits with broken. You're not broken. Neither are you. We're healing. And maybe we can heal together. He searched her face. You're sure? This isn't gratitude or fear or need for security? Because I'll help you regardless. I'll be your friend and neighbor. You don't owe me anything. I know that. And yes, I'm sure. She leaned into his touch. I'm falling in love with you, Elijah Chambers. Maybe I already fell. I tried not to because it seemed too fast, too complicated. But my heart doesn't care about logic. It just wants you. His breath caught. Abigail. So if you feel the same way, tell me. If you don't, tell me that too. But don't push me away because you think I deserve better. Let me choose what I want. I love you, he said roughly. God help me. I've probably loved you since I pulled you out of that snow. Thought you were an angel. Couldn't believe someone so beautiful was real. And then I got to know you. Your strength. Your courage. Your refusal to give up. And I fell harder. Joy exploded in her chest. Then kiss me. Stop being noble. And just kiss me. He laughed, and it was the most beautiful sound she'd ever heard. Then his mouth was on hers, and the world narrowed to just this. His lips, his hands, the solid warmth of him against her. The kiss was different from before, not desperate or rushed, but deep, sure, a promise of everything they could be together. When they finally broke apart, both were smiling. So what happens now? Abigail asked. Now I court you properly. bring you flowers, take you to church socials, ask your permission for everything. He grinned. And eventually, if you'll have me, I'll ask you to marry me. I'll have you, she said immediately. I haven't asked yet. I know. But when you do, the answer's yes. He kissed her again, softer this time, tender. I'll make you happy. I swear it. I'll work hard, protect you, love you every day for the rest of my life. I know. And I'll do the same for you. They spent the rest of the day together. Elijah helped with chores. They fixed the fence where Kincaid's men had cut it, checked on her cattle, now safely returned, made plans for spring planting and repairs. It felt right, natural, like they'd been partners for years instead of weeks. As evening approached, Elijah reluctantly prepared to leave. I should get home. Mother will worry. Or you could stay, Abigail said, then blushed. In the barn. I mean, like before. His eyes darkened. If I stay, I'm going to want to kiss you again. I'm counting on it. He smiled and pulled her close. You're making it very hard to be a gentleman. Good. She kissed him, quick and light. Because I don't want a gentleman. I want you. Abigail Sterling, you're going to be the death of me. Or the life of you, she countered. Isn't that what you said? That I made you feel alive again? You do. More alive than I've felt in years. They stood wrapped in each other's arms as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The land stretched around them, beautiful and harsh and full of possibility. I can't believe this is real, Abigail whispered. A month ago I was in Boston with nothing. Now I have land, a home, a future. You. It's real. And it's just beginning. The next day, the marshal arrived in Oklahoma City as expected. Elijah and Abigail rode there together, Mary insisting on accompanying them as chaperone. They presented the ledger and their testimony. The marshal was a weathered man in his 50s, named Davis. He listened carefully, examined the evidence, and nodded grimly. I've suspected Kincaid for years, he admitted, but never had proof. This ledger is damning. Where is he now? Probably halfway to Mexico, Elijah said. He ran yesterday morning. I'll send word to neighboring territories. Put a warrant out. He won't get far. Davis shook their hands. You did a brave thing, standing up to him. Folks around here will be grateful. Word spread quickly. By the time they returned home, neighbors were stopping by to thank Abigail, to share their own stories of Kincaid's threats and thefts, to welcome her properly to the territory now that the danger had passed. The community embraced her, invited her to church services, asked her opinion on territory matters, treated her not as an outsider from Boston, but as one of them. And everywhere she went, Elijah was beside her, proud, protective, openly courting her in front of everyone. Weeks passed. Winter deepened, then began its slow retreat. Snow melted. Green appeared in sheltered valleys. And Abigail's ranch thrived under her care and Elijah's guidance. They worked together most days. He taught her everything she needed to know. How to recognize sick cattle. When to plant what crops. How to repair equipment. She was an eager student, learning fast, asking questions, not afraid of hard work. And every evening, he'd ride home to his mother's ranch, proper, respectable, even though both of them wanted more. "When can we get married?" Abigail asked one evening in early March. They sat on her porch, watching another sunset, his arm around her shoulders. "Eager?" he teased. "Yes. I'm tired of you leaving every night. I want you here, in the house, in my bed." She blushed but held his gaze. "I want to be your wife." His eyes darkened with want. "I want that too, more than you know. But we should wait until spring is properly here. Have a real wedding. Invite everyone. Do it right." "I don't need a big wedding." "I know. But I want to give you one anyway. Want everyone to see me marry the most beautiful, bravest woman in the territory. Flatterer. Truth-teller." He kissed her temple. "One more month. We'll marry in April, when the prairie flowers bloom. Have a celebration. Start our life together properly." "1 month," she agreed reluctantly. "But I'm holding you to that. I'm counting on it." Those weeks were both wonderful and torturous. Wonderful because they spent every day together, building something real. Torturous because the attraction between them built until every touch, every kiss, left them both aching for more. But they waited. Because it mattered. Because doing things right meant something out here where reputation and community were everything. April arrived with warm winds and wildflowers. The prairie transformed into a carpet of color. Blues and purples and yellows spreading as far as the eye could see. And on a bright Saturday afternoon, with half the territory watching, Abigail Sterling married Elijah Chambers in front of the small church in Oklahoma City. She wore a simple white dress Mary had helped her make, wildflowers in her hair. And when Elijah turned to look at her walking toward him, the love in his eyes made her breath catch. "You're beautiful," he whispered when she reached him. "So are you." The ceremony was short. Traditional vows. Promises made in front of God and witnesses. And when the preacher said, "You may kiss your bride," Elijah pulled her close and kissed her like he'd been waiting his whole life for this moment. The celebration afterward was joyful. Food and music and dancing. Tom Fletcher played fiddle. Miguel sang Spanish love songs. Mary cried happy tears and hugged them both until they couldn't breathe. As evening approached, people began leaving, offering congratulations, making jokes about wedding nights, riding off into the gathering dusk. Finally, Elijah and Abigail were alone, standing in front of her ranch house. Their ranch house now. "Home. Ready?" he asked, offering his hand. "I've been ready since the day you found me in that blizzard." He laughed and swept her into his arms, carrying her across the threshold. She wrapped her arms around his neck and kissed him, deep and sure. Inside, he set her down gently. They stood close in the dimming light, hands finding each other. "I love you," Abigail said. "I love you so much it scares me sometimes." "Don't be scared. I'm not going anywhere. This is forever." "Forever," she agreed. He kissed her again, and this time there was no reason to stop. No propriety to maintain. No tomorrow to worry about. Just them, together, finally free to show each other the depth of their love. The lantern burned low as evening deepened into night. Outside, the prairie stretched peaceful and quiet. Inside, Two people who'd found each other against all odds discovered what it meant to truly come home. Morning arrived with golden light streaming through windows. Abigail woke wrapped in Elijah's arms, his chest rising and falling beneath her cheek. She'd never known such peace, such absolute contentment. He stirred, pulling her closer. "Morning," he murmured, voice rough with sleep. "Good morning, husband." He smiled, eyes still closed. "I like the sound of that." "So do I." They lay together as the sun climbed higher, talking quietly, making plans, dreaming about the future. Children they might have, improvements to the ranch, years ahead filled with work and love, and building something that would last. Eventually they rose, made breakfast together, coffee and eggs and the bread Mary had sent home with them. Simple food that tasted like celebration. As they ate, Elijah reached across the table and took her hand. "Happy? Happier than I ever imagined possible," Abigail said honestly. "A year ago I was alone in Boston, barely surviving, thinking my life was over. Now I have land, a home, purpose. You. Everything I ever wanted." "The blizzard brought you to me," Elijah said. "I'll be grateful for that storm for the rest of my life." "So will I. It brought me home." After breakfast, they walked the property together, checking fences, counting cattle, planning where to plant crops and build new structures. The work would never end, but they'd face it together. Standing on a small rise overlooking the valley, Abigail turned to look at the land spreading before her. The house, the barn, the prairie stretching forever under endless sky. Everything golden in morning light. "It's beautiful," she said. "Yes," Elijah agreed. But he was looking at her, not the land. She turned into his arms. "Thank you for saving me, for loving me, for making me believe in happiness again. Thank you for letting me, for seeing past the broken pieces to who I could be." He kissed her forehead. "I was just surviving before you. Now I'm living. We both are." They stood wrapped in each other's arms, the morning breeze carrying the scent of wildflowers and prairie grass. Above them, a hawk circled lazy patterns against blue sky. Somewhere in the distance, cattle lowed peacefully. This was home. This was happiness. Two people who'd survived loss and hardship, finding joy in each other. Building a life, one day at a time. Together. Abigail thought about that frozen woman in the blizzard, certain she was dying. If she could speak to that terrified version of herself, she'd say, "Hold on. Help is coming. Love is coming. Everything you've dreamed of is just ahead. Just hold on a little longer." "What are you thinking about?" Elijah asked. "How lucky we are. How perfect this moment is. Every moment with you is perfect." She laughed. "You're getting better at this feelings and words thing. I have a good teacher." They kissed as morning became afternoon, the sun warming their faces, the land alive with spring all around them. This was just the beginning. Years stretched ahead filled with seasons changing, challenges faced, love deepening. But in that moment, standing together on their land with hope and love and future spreading before them, nothing else mattered except this. Them. Together. Finally home. The days that followed their wedding settled into a rhythm that felt both new and ancient. Abigail woke each morning to Elijah's warmth beside her, still marveling that this was real, that she got to keep him. They worked the ranch together. Elijah taught her to rope cattle, showing her how to coil the lasso, how to read an animal's movement, when to throw. She was clumsy at first, missing more than she caught. But his patience never wavered. "You're getting better," he'd say after each failed attempt. "Try again." And she would. Because giving up wasn't in her nature. Not anymore. One afternoon, she finally roped a young steer on her first throw. The rope settled around its neck perfectly. She whooped in triumph, and Elijah's laugh rang out across the prairie. "That's my girl," he said, pride evident in every word. Her heart swelled. His girl, his wife, his partner. She'd never felt so seen, so valued, so completely herself. They established small rituals that became sacred. Coffee on the porch each morning, watching the sun paint the sky. Evening walks after supper, hands clasped, talking about everything and nothing. Nights by the fire, Elijah reading aloud while she mended or worked on sewing projects. Mary visited often, always bringing food and news from neighboring ranches. She'd watch Elijah and Abigail together with satisfied smiles, clearly pleased her son had found happiness. "You're good for him," she told Abigail one afternoon while they prepared supper together. "I haven't seen him this light, this free, since before the war. Whatever darkness he carried, you're helping him release it." "He's good for me too," Abigail said. "I didn't know I could be this happy. Didn't think I deserved it. We all deserve happiness, dear. We just have to be brave enough to accept it when it comes." The territory settled into spring routines. Neighbors helped each other with planting. The church held socials every Sunday after services. Tom Fletcher started courting a young woman named Sarah, who'd arrived on the same train as Abigail. Miguel brought his guitar to gatherings, teaching them all Spanish songs. Kincaid never returned. Word came eventually that he'd been caught trying to cross into Mexico. The marshal brought him back to face justice. A trial was scheduled for summer. Abigail would have to testify, but she wasn't afraid. Not with Elijah beside her. "Whatever comes, we'll face it together," he promised. And she believed him. One evening in late April, as they sat on the porch watching stars emerge, Elijah turned to her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "What?" she asked. "I keep thinking about that blizzard," he said quietly. "What if I hadn't ridden out that day? What if I'd stayed home like Mother wanted? You would have died out there. But you didn't stay home. You saved me. By chance. By luck. It terrifies me sometimes how easily I could have lost you before I ever knew you." Abigail took his hand, threading their fingers together. "But you didn't lose me. I'm here. We're here. That's what matters. I know. I just want you to understand how precious you are to me. How every day with you feels like a gift I don't deserve." "You deserve everything good," she said fiercely. "You're a good man, Elijah Chambers. A brave man. A kind man. And you're mine." He pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. "Yours," he agreed. "Always yours." They sat wrapped together as darkness deepened and the prairie grew quiet. A coyote called in the distance. Night birds sang their evening chorus. and Abigail felt peace settle into her bones. This was home. This man, this land, this life they were building together. It hadn't been easy. The journey from Boston to this porch had nearly killed her. But every struggle, every fear, every moment of doubt had been worth it. Because it led her here, to Elijah, to love, to happiness she'd stopped believing was possible. "I love you," she whispered into the darkness. "I love you too," he murmured back. More than words can say. They stayed there until the moon rose high, silver light painting the prairie in shades of gray and shadow. The land stretched around them, beautiful and harsh and full of promise. Tomorrow they'd wake early and work hard, face whatever challenges came, build their ranch and their life one day at a time. But tonight was just for them, for quiet moments and whispered words and the absolute certainty that they'd found something rare and precious. They'd found each other. Against impossible odds, through blizzards and danger and fear, they'd found each other. And that was everything. Elijah stood finally, offering his hand. "Come on, let's go inside." Abigail took his hand and let him pull her up. Together they walked into their home, closing the door on the night and the prairie and the world beyond. Inside was warmth and love and the future they'd build together. A future that started right now, in this moment, with his arms around her and her heart finally, completely at peace. She was home. They were home. And nothing would ever take that away. She was lost in a blizzard. A cowboy found her and changed everything. The lamplight flickered as they moved through the house, and Abigail paused one more time to look at Elijah. Really look at him. Her husband. Her partner. The man who'd ridden into a killing storm and refused to let her die. "What?" he asked, smiling at her scrutiny. "Just memorizing this moment. Us. Here. Happy." He cupped her face gently, his thumb brushing across her cheek. "There will be thousands more moments like this. I promise you that." "I know. But this one is special. Our beginning." "Our beginning," he agreed. They moved toward the bedroom together, leaving the lamp burning low on the table. Outside, the prairie wind whispered across the grassland, carrying the scent of wildflowers and spring rain. Inside, two people who'd found each other against all odds settled into the life they'd fought so hard to build. A life filled with work and love, and the quiet joy of waking up each morning knowing they belonged to each other. Abigail Sterling Chambers fell asleep in her husband's arms, warm and safe and completely content. The blizzard that nearly killed her had brought her everything she'd ever wanted. Home. Purpose. Love. And tomorrow would bring more of the same. More work, more laughter, more quiet evenings on the porch, watching the sun set over their land. It was enough. More than enough. It was everything.